all, if you haven't been to my channel before, my name is Julie and I tend to make content surrounding topics such as mental health, makeup, as well as music. Today we are combining mental health and makeup because I am doing a get ready with me, so I'll be doing my makeup and chit-chatting with you about traits of toxic people and what you can do to communicate better and take care of your mental well-being. If that topic sounds appealing to you and you'd like to see how I got this look, then just keep watching. For today's video, we are going to be chit-chatting about toxic people and warning signs, personality traits of toxic people, and what to look out for. One thing I want to mention is that I didn't look into scholarly research in my field per se, and more so asked around pertaining to what my friends noticed were warning signs. I also looked at some articles online, although I did try to look for psychology websites, but as I know from school, just because it's on some sort of psychology website doesn't always mean it's the most credible. However, I do have some quotes that resonated with me that I thought were helpful to encapsulate what to look out for from some clinical psychologists, and so I will be mentioning those. One of the most important things I want to mention when it comes to toxic individuals is that some of the traits I mention here may not be applicable to you. You may say, oh, if my friend had that trait, or loved one, partner, whoever, that doesn't really affect me or bother me, and I guess that's okay because, as I've said in previous videos, I strongly believe in individuality, and I do believe that certain aspects affect people differently. Understanding of that, one thing I read, and I already felt this, so it was very validating to read, was that a toxic person, it really depends on your perception. So if they're affecting your mental health, if the relationship is weighing on you, if you feel manipulated, then they qualify as a toxic person to you. Their behaviors may be toxic because of how they are affecting you, whereas somebody else may not be affected in the same way. It really just depends on what you care about in relationships, what aspects are important to you. Some of us, including myself, really look for intimate, deep relationships where I feel supported by the other person, and a lot of people, I'm sure, identify with that, whereas others may not. So with that disclaimer out of the way, because if you're watching this and you're like, nah, it doesn't affect me, nah, that's not a thing for me, I want you to understand that although it may not apply to you, it may affect other people in a different way, and that is totally valid. However it affects you qualifies and is important. Now, the only clinical aspect I will speak on regarding my mental health experience with this in the field is that in my internship at the high school, we did 3 modules on healthy, unhealthy, as well as abusive relationships. And this honestly was one of my favorite modules we did because it's so applicable to real life. And also, the first thing we did is we made the kids take a quiz to evaluate where the kids were at with identifying traits of these relationship types. And it was cool because after the 3 modules, we had them take the same quiz and see if their answers changed, which for many of them they did. So I feel that they were very receptive to the content. And again, it was because it was applicable to real life. So they were able to think of personal times in their lives where they were affected by an unhealthy relationship or an abusive relationship of some sort. And some of them did share these examples, which I thought was really important because it helped to show the other kids that they weren't alone in whatever they were struggling with. Delving into these aspects is important, so I would say that a lot of them we covered more so had to do with romantic relationships, but some of the traits definitely also applied to platonic relationships, whether that was with family or friends or whoever. For example, one unhealthy trait to look out for with a toxic individual is control. So if your partner or friend is attempting to control who you hang out with, who you see, what you do in your free time, is jealous of other people in your life, then that is definitely a warning sign to communicate with them that you deserve your freedom. And if they don't hear you, in my humble opinion, it's time to get out. Another unhealthy relationship trait, which I think a lot of people don't realize, is when your partner says, I can't live without you. Some teens and adults alike think, oh, this is so romantic, this person really loves me, and I can see where that would come from. But at the same time, people need to love themselves and live without someone if things go awry. And it also, unintentionally for some, can be a guilt trip, because then if you try to leave the person, they're like, no, I can't live without you, don't do this to me. And that can get you stuck in a situation where you feel like you can't leave. And I would think that would be really difficult to deal with, especially if you cared about the person. Dishonesty, I don't think I have to delve into what that is. Obviously, if your friend, partner, whoever it is lying to you often, that is not okay. That is not acceptable. And if you confront them about it because you obviously know that they are lying, it's not fair to you. It's not fair to you. And if it's one lie and maybe you catch it and you talk to them about it and they sort of explain their reasoning as to why they lied, perhaps you can forgive them and move forward depending on your values and how deeply it affected you. There are people out there who are pathological liars, which is very concerning and definitely a warning sign to get out. It's so interesting to me where that comes from, whether it's someone going into survival mode. I would theorize that it had something to do with that aspect. Delving into another trait that we learned about was disrespect. So if someone is disrespecting you, a warning sign of this, and I see this a lot, is that they make fun of you or talk about you behind your back, but they are supposed to be someone who deeply cares about you. Beyond that, I believe and have experienced that if someone talks about other people a lot, makes fun of other people, talks about them behind their back, but they're nice to you, it's hard to trust them, because how do you know that they're not talking about you? Having the mentality of, oh, well, at least they're nice to me, in my opinion, just is worrisome. Now, moving forward to articles I've read, as well as collecting opinions from people who've experienced this that I know, we have manipulative, which manipulation's not always intentional. People tend to react in a way where they know they'll get what they want. Say they kind of throw a fit or are aggressive, and they know you're someone that shuts down in conflict, even if it's not intentional. Maybe in the past that's how they got what they wanted, and so they continue to fall into those aspects, which is very concerning. Another toxic trait is someone who tends to be judgmental. They may easily criticize others. As I said, they may talk poorly about others that are supposed to be caring people in their life. And a relationship where you feel burnt out because there's only take and no give. That person is not supporting you and they're not doing anything to make you feel better or enhance your life in any way. However, you are there for them and you're always doing things for them. That is not fair to you or your mental health. People who fail to take responsibility for their feelings and play the victim and blame everyone else and fail to acknowledge when they are in the wrong or hurt someone. Another aspect of this is they don't apologize. They do something so hurtful, they snap at you, whatever it may be, and they don't recognize that it was wrong, and they don't apologize, and that's really invalidating and hurtful in my opinion. Another aspect, and this is kind of falling into the frenemy, which I've read about, is people who are unsupportive of your victories. And to me, again, this is absolutely concerning, because you want a friend who celebrates your success and looks up to you and encourages your growth and is empowering and kind. A quote that really resonated with me, and it was from a woman named Jodi Gale, who has a master's degree and is a psychotherapist. This is what she said about toxic people. Often, the person is deeply wounded. And for whatever reason, they are not yet able to take responsibility for their wounding, their feelings, their needs, and their subsequent problems in life. And again, I do have some empathy and see a perspective of sometimes we're not there yet, we're not ready to get help, we're not ready to open up, depending on what we've gone through. I'll link that article down below. It came from a website called Psych Central. Some other aspects are people that don't respect your boundaries. That is something to definitely look out for. When you say no, they don't listen, they persist, they continue to hurt you and do things that are upsetting and triggering for you. If you feel you have to walk on eggshells around them, if you feel like you can't confront them about what hurts you and you're more worried about hurting their feelings and you're sacrificing your own mental health and distress to protect them. Another toxic trait, and I would argue that this tends to also happen within abusive relationships, is gaslighting. And I did pull a quote from this that resonated with me that I thought helped to define what gaslighting may look like in a relationship. Gaslighting, according to a psychologist named Robin Stern, who is the associate director of the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and has written a book entitled The Gaslight Effect, said to Psychology Today, gaslighting is a systematic attempt by one person to erode another's reality by telling them what they're experiencing isn't so, and the gradual giving up on the part of the other person. I recently was asking my therapist about how DBT could be helpful in improving my communication skills and working through difficult aspects. She was discussing how part of DBT, the first letter in DBT in the acronym, stands for didactic. I wanted to add a funny saying that comes from my grandmother, and I don't know if this comes from somewhere else, but she's been saying this since I was a kid, and I find it funny. She says there's 3 sides to every story: yours, theirs, and the truth. I love that because back to didactic. So didactic means that there's different perspectives, there's different truths. Di obviously indicates 2. It's really important to, even if you don't agree with someone else's truth, to validate theirs, and hopefully they will also validate yours, because that is really important to have a healthy relationship and good communication. Anyone who seeks revenge and feels justified in hurting others, like who just says, you hurt me first, you did this first, oh, an eye for an eye. Yeah, that one is outdated. Let's think about how far back that statement was, right? It's not going to get you anywhere. You might initially feel a rush. You might feel better. You might feel justified in what you did. But it's not worth putting that negative energy into hurting someone else. It's better to focus on the positive people and positive aspects present in your life, because you want to be a healthy person. And I'm not sitting here being like, ugh, these toxic people, I'm so morally superior and I'm this perfect individual, because no one is perfect by any means. I absolutely have been the toxic person. I'm sure we all have been. I'm sure we've made mistakes and hurt people along the way. It's important to forgive ourselves for that and use those experiences to reflect, set goals to be a kinder, healthier person, and move forward. So now moving forward to how to improve your relationships, improve your self-advocacy skills, and aspects like that. Boundaries are so important. And yeah, it sucks because we can't control other people, so we can set boundaries all we want, but other people may not respect those. And that can be super, super frustrating. At the same time, to respect ourselves and care for our mental health, setting boundaries is really important to our overall well-being, and as well as it being a component of a healthy relationship, which is what we should all ultimately strive for, I would argue. Also, because you care about this person, most likely, you may make excuses for them. You may say, oh, they've been through this and that, and they struggle with this and that mental health issue, or endured this horrible trauma. And so you may stay in it, but by doing that, you are not helping that person grow. And although it comes from a good place, you're doing them a disservice. and they deserve to be educated on when they make a mistake. If they can't identify that it's a mistake, I believe that that's important as well. Another thing that I guess is kind of controversial for a lot of people, because they keep people around no matter what, and I see posts all the time like, you talk to people, don't cut them off. And yeah, I agree with that. You should absolutely talk it out with people first and give them a chance to make changes and have that conversation to advocate for yourself and improve your communication skills. At the same time, if someone is unhealthy and it's affecting you, and especially if someone's abusive, then you gotta get out of there, in my opinion. You gotta cut them off. And yeah, like, that can be hurtful and that can be a hard transition, but in the long run, it will be better for you and your well-being. I think in my little rant, that's all I have for you today, so I will be back with my finished look. This is the finished look. I hope it looks pretty good. I know there's some white concealer up here, but I really don't care. This is actually my Valentine's Day look. I copied this from a tutorial from Annette's Makeup Corner, which I will also link down below. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the topic that I discussed today. If you're liking my content so far, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'd also love for you to give this video a like. Leave a comment down below telling me what traits you tend to agree with that I mentioned regarding toxic people, or if you've dealt with something unhealthy. If you're not comfortable opening up, totally fine, but I would love for you to do so. All right, I will catch you guys on the flip side. Please check out my social medias. My Instagram is Julie_counseling. My Twitter is Julie Counseling with no underscore. And I also have a Facebook page, which will be linked down below. I hope you guys are having a lovely day. Bye, guys.